But was there a moment that changed you and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore?
I would say you have an influx of migrants going to Chicago, right? Right. I'm not anti-immigrant. I can't believe I'm hearing you say this stuff.
I've said this for years. I've said it for years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. The majority of the Democratic Party, in the Senate in particular, pretend like they're all on board with Biden's agenda and the idea of having Medicare negotiate drug prices. And then you always have the bad cops who are willing to raise their hands and torpedo that provision. That's essentially what happened with Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Don't make the mistake of thinking they were the only ones, because sitting on the bleachers waiting were other corporate Democrats who would step in if they needed to prevent the passage of that provision.
We're not going to talk about every single Republican in lockstep who voted against it. Who do you think is blocking these reforms? Trump is the one that tried to actually kill all parts of the ACA when he came in. We're just going to pretend that that didn't happen? 35 minutes left. Do you think a single negative thing will be said about Trump or the Republicans by the end of this?
There's been a lot of attention focused on, DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency, and what they're going to focus their energies on.
She's not about to fucking support DOGE, is she? As like Anna comes on their program, like, yes, oh yeah, Manchin, Sinema, yes, keep giving me the horrible the corporate Dems. I'm sorry, did you say donor class? Yes, give me that, more of that. Yes, more of the donor class. Oh yeah, the billionaires, the corporate Dems. Yes, the Dems are now doing hawkish foreign policy. Absolutely, yes. Oh my, it's the Dems that are, you said pro-war? Now Republicans are anti-war? Give me Ukraine, and the Democrats are supporting Ukraine now, right? And we're not even doing anything about homeless people, and we're getting illegal immigrants that the Dems are taking, and they're destroying healthcare, and they don't want to do anything for the, like, it's literally, it's like this, like, just come here and like shit on the Dems for it. It's like, like.
Well, I would say that I was firmly identifying myself as a Democrat. I think that if you look at my policy prescriptions, for the most part, I'm still pretty much left-wing. There are some social issues
Hold on. Definition of left-wing to you. Is that Democrat or left-wing? What does that mean?
Well, left-wing in regard to, I would say like one of my grounding political values is that workers should have better pay, better working conditions, a seat at the table. Unionized labor, I think, is incredibly important, which, it's something that's been decimated in recent decades in this country. But that's like my number one interest in politics. And that's not really something that has really been favored by the Republican Party, traditionally speaking. And historically, unionized labor was something that the Democratic Party looked out for. And I don't really see that as the case anymore when it comes to the main.
So was the Biden, all those resolutions, none of that just mattered at all? Like Biden's like history with labor unions, just none of that mattered? Or what is Trump's history with labor unions? Like, what do we...
Extreme Democrats. They're certainly more corporate now.
Yeah.
They're certainly captured by their corporate donors. I think that the way that this last election went down really does show you the kind of political strategist rot that exists, the corruption that exists. And there's real tension now between the voters who want very specific policy prescriptions in order to deal with the rising inequalities that we have in this country when it comes to wealth and income.
Sure.
And then you have the Democratic Party, which is heavily funded by corporate interests and moneyed interests. And what those donors want severely conflicts with what the base of Democratic voters want. And so this has been a growing issue with the Democratic Party. And what I see as, their campaign call is more and more culture war stuff. And it gets more and more extreme every election cycle. And I think that they're pushing more and more people away by sticking to the corporate politics while also getting more and more maximalist when it comes to some of the culture war type issues.
So as I look, because it is so hard, what you do, what I do, there's so many words that come out of us every single day, and then out of context or not worded, or, exactly right. The way I look at the Democratic Party or the left is that there is the machine that is in bed now with big business, and that's just the crony capitalism, just the vomitous kind of corruption that we all hate in either party, any party.
Right.
Then there's the average Democrat who might disagree on tax.
Crony capitalism is always a massive dog whistle from somebody who doesn't want to accept the fact that capitalism doesn't solve for everything. Capitalism allows you to allocate capital efficiently into profit-making ventures with little regard for external damage to society and little regard sometimes for long-term profitability. That's it. Capitalism is not good. It's not bad. It just allocates money efficiently to areas where short to medium term money can be made. That's it. There are some sectors where this works really well. There are some sectors where this doesn't work. You don't get to call it crony capitalism because you're not happy with some particular outcome. It's just capitalism. The way to stop capitalism from being really bad is with government regulation. Monopolies and all of these things are natural outcomes of capital markets. You want to be a sole controller of a market because you want to make the most money possible. And being a monopoly allows you to do that. That is not crony capital. That's just capitalism. This is why government intervention exists.
All hate in either party, any party.
Right.
Then there's the average Democrat who might disagree on taxes or whatever, but they believe in the Constitution and they believe in the Bill of Rights and everything else. And I think that has been that is the majority of people.
Absolutely.
And then there's this crazy left-wing Marxist, destroy it all kind of group. And that, I don't even know, maybe 8%, 10% is that. And it's the middle people who have been either lied to so effectively by so many people, mainly mainstream media. But we're at the beginning in the Democratic Party, possibly, of those people.
Don't ban me, but this sounds like a case to have government intervention in pharmacy benefit management and vertical integration in healthcare. What? Why would I ban you for that? That's essentially my position.
People waking up and going, I don't like either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I take a little bit of issue with the use of Marxist in this context because honestly, I think that there's maybe a total of like 5 actual Marxists in this country. In reality, we're talking about individuals whose politics is mostly based on, some fringe issue or some cultural issue that they have. It's not just that they care about that issue, it's that they've taken that issue and they've made it part of their identity, the core of who they are. And it's almost like what you would expect from religious zealots, and so there's a fundamentalism involved in the way that they treat these issues, and there's no room to negotiate, there's no room to maybe consider the thoughts and concerns of other individuals. And so as they become more and more kind of like authoritarian in what they demand, they are pushing people away. And there are some issues in which the rights of one group might actually end up conflicting with the rights of another group, depending on what type of legislation you're pursuing. And so of course this has come up with the trans issue, and I've always been supportive of the transgender community, but when
people say stuff like lies from the mainstream media, what lies exactly? Who knows? You never know. You'll never get to know because none of these conversations are real. This is just theater. All of this is just, we're watching 2 actors on a stage who are saying things to make you feel a certain thing. That's it. There will be no specific policies that are discussed here. There will be no specific examples given for anything. It'll just be the most broad strokes things ever. And both of these people are millionaires giving you media takes without having done any reading research or ability to talk like with substance about literally anything. That's, that's it.
Rights of transgender people, particularly transgender women, start to cause some tension with the rights and freedoms of women or the perceived safety of women. Well, let's have a conversation and avoid assuming the worst of the people who want to have that conversation, right? Because I think that in a country like America, where you have so many different people.
What kind of mics are they using? I don't know. I don't know if these are the hanging mics. I'm guessing to make something like this work, you have to have a really, really quiet studio, right? Although the studio looks huge as well.
So many different backgrounds, beliefs, people of faith. The only way this works is if we respect each other and actually engage in these conversations in good faith. And I felt that the left was able to do that back in the day. And I don't know what happened, but we've moved further and further away from being able to have those conversations in good faith without assuming malice toward individuals who have a slight difference of opinion.
So, let me just ask you first. You believe in the Bill of Rights?
Of course, yes.
All of them?
I love this country.
Yeah, I know.
I love this country. I love the idea of this country.
I'm not questioning. I just want to know, do you believe in the Bill of Rights as written? Okay. That used to be our unum. We could all come together and disagree and live different lifestyles.
There's nothing. Who the cares about just the Bill of... Why would that be the focal point? Why would that be the focus of the thing that you care about the most over just like the Constitution and the structure of our government? Why? I know why. It's because he's the First Amendment, Second Amendment. No one even knows what the Third Amendment is. And you know why I say that? Because I don't know what the Third Amendment is. We will get to reading the whole Constitution. I don't even know what all the 10 amendments are. What is the third one? No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. Pff, cringe. Okay.
As long as I'm not taking away your rights, you're not taking away my rights. I have a right to disagree with you. We can have conversations about anything and walk away and go, see you tomorrow, Bill. You know what I mean? That's what's happened to us. There's been this erosion of education of how important the Bill of Rights is. We're looking now at a population, especially a younger population, that thinks that there's limits on speech.
Right.
There's not limit.
Just to be clear, and maybe I'll change my mind as we get through more of the Federalist Papers or whatever, the cool and awesome and amazing thing about the United States of America was the unique structure that we had of like a federal government and a state government and a government of limited powers federally that united a whole bunch of independent state governments that still respected the individual rights of those citizens. It wasn't just fucking free speech. It wasn't just free speech, fucking free speech, bro. It's because we could all go on fucking Twitter and fucking say the world is fucking shit, bro. Like, that's not the reason why the United States was so successful and revolutionary. Like as an individual, as a starting country in the 1700s, it wasn't the thing that made us like so amazing. No limits on freedom of speech, bro.
Well, there are some limits, right?
What are they?
The typical example is you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater.
Not true. That was actually written by the Supreme Court to prove against that.
Really?
Yeah, it was not.
But you can't incite violence.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what? Does he think there aren't civil liabilities for yelling fire in a crowded theater?
Actually written by the Supreme Court to prove against that.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold on, actually. Now I want to see what case does this come from? Scream, fire, crowded theater, Supreme Court. What was the case? Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr.'s opinion in the United States Supreme Court. Okay. Schenck v. United States. Schenck v. United States. This is the whole case? Oh, a short one. God, remember when they used to just write them short and now they just they act like they took away the Twitter word limit. Okay, the case is stated in the opinion. Holmes delivered the opinion of the court. Okay, so this is the majority opinion delivered by him. He's writing. Okay, so this is some of the things he's saying. Okay. It described the arguments on the other side as coming from cunning politicians and a mercenary capitalist press, and even silent consent to the conscription law as helping to support an infamous conspiracy. It denied the power to send our citizens away to foreign shores to shoot up the people of other lands, and added that words could not express the condemnation such cold-blooded ruthlessness deserves. Something like winding up. Quote, you must do your share to maintain, support, and uphold the rights of the people of this country, end quote. Of course, the document would not have been sent unless it had been intended to have some effect, and we do not see what effect it could be expected to have upon persons subject to the draft, except to influence them to obstruct the carrying of it out. The defendants do not deny that the jury might find against them on this point, but it is said, suppose that that was the tendency of this circular. It is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Two of the strongest expressions are said to be quoted respectively from well-known public men. It well may be that the prohibition of laws abridging the freedom of speech is not confined to previous restraints, although to prevent them may have been the main purpose, as intimated in Patterson v. Colorado. We admit that in many places and in ordinary times, the defendants, in saying all that was said in the circular, would have been within their constitutional rights, but the character of every act depends upon the circumstances in which it is done. Aikens v. Wisconsin, the most stringent protection of free speech would not protect a man in falsely shouting fire in a theater and causing a panic. It does not even protect a man from an injunction against uttering words that may have all the effect in force. Citing other cases, the question in every case is whether the words used are used in such circumstances and are of such a nature as to create a clear and present danger that they will bring about the substantive evils that Congress has a right to prevent. It is okay. What case is Glenn Beck talking about here? What is he? Is it this one? Gompers v. Buxton. Although the way this judge is citing it is that it wouldn't protect it. Shouting fire in a crowded theater is a popular analogy for speech or actions whose principal purpose is to create panic, and in particular for speech or actions which may, for that reason, be thought to be outside the scope of free speech protections. The phrase is a paraphrasing of a dictum or non-binding statement from Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr.'s opinion in the United States Supreme Court case Schenck v. U.S. in 1919, which held the defendant's speech in opposition to the draft during World War I was not protected free speech under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. The case was later partially overturned by Brandenburg v. Ohio, which limited the scope of banned speech to that directed to and likely to incite imminent lawless action, e.g. an immediate riot. The paraphrasing differs from Holmes' original wording that it typically does not include the word falsely, while also adding the word crowded to describe the theater. The utterance of fire in and of itself is not generally legal in the United States. Sometimes you could yell fire in a crowded theater without facing punishment. The theater may actually be on fire. Or, yeah, of course. Furthermore, within the doctrine of First Amendment, protected free speech within the United States, yelling fire speech is not itself the legally problematic event, but rather there are scenarios in which intentionally lying about a fire in a... Okay, so Glenn Beck is just lying. Okay, so he's just lying, but that's okay. This is why we read the underlying material. Okay, it was just lying.
Right.
There's not limit.
Well, there are some limits, right?
What are
they? The typical example is you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater.
Not true. That was actually written by the Supreme Court to prove against that.
Really?
Yeah, it was not.
But you can't incite violence.
Yes,
you
that's
can't engage
true.
in defamation.
You can't say things that directly incite violence or panic.
Right.
And it's very clear when, we're going to go kill him and we're going to kill him now. That's the end of freedom of speech.
Right.
But without freedom of speech, where we can't say, I'm sorry, I respect this person, I love this person, they can live their life, but if I'm taking them to the hospital, I am telling the doctor that's a man, not a woman. No, they can call themselves whatever. I could even be totally cool with it, but we have to be able to have a civil, non-hateful conversation about truth.
Sick and tired of you squirming around on this, so I'm putting you on the spot. Are you a Chicago pizza kind of guy or a New York style? Okay, so Wittgenstein tells us, that when you're evaluating what seem to be difficult questions, oftentimes the difficulty is just in the phrasing itself. Okay, the words are the things that are chosen themselves are what makes it seemingly a complicated question. But if you analyze the language, it's not. So when you say, would I choose between Chicago-style pizza or New York-style pizza, only one of those things is real pizza. So the obvious answer is New York-style pizza. This is a false question.
I mean, I agree with you.
I could even be totally cool with it, but we have to be able to have a civil, non-hateful conversation about truth.
I mean, I agree with you on that. And, the argument, and I think this is a decent argument that you'll hear from those who are more restrictive or wanting more restrictions on speech is, well, we want better terms of service when it comes to, private companies, but free speech only has to do with the government. And if the government isn't violating your free speech, then why are we complaining about,
That's not a problem if the government's not in bed with all of the business. You know what I mean?
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
This isn't even interesting. This is what I'm saying. It's not even It's not even talking about. The issue is not whether or not government is in bed with big business. The issue is whether or not businesses essentially dictate your speech in the United States. I don't give a fuck if the government is working with Facebook or Twitter to ban me if I'm getting fucking banned. That's the issue is whether or not the public square is essentially controlled by a few major companies. That's the issue. But it always has, okay.
Republicans used to be the big business people.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And
I think they still are to a large extent.
I think remember we talked about those, the three with Republicans. There's that machinery Republican. They're all in bed still. They're all in bed. That section, I hope, comes to an end, but there'll always be those people. So I agree with you on that.
Does it annoy you just how much people just endlessly talk about having a conversation without ever actually saying anything substantial at all? Yeah, this is why I got so irritated about my earlier appearances on shit. I just hated. It was just the whole comment section
Something
on all of these was literally like left versus right, conservative versus progressive, Democrat versus Republican, theist versus atheist, traditional. This debate truly encapsulated a lot. This is 100 times better than any presidential debate will ever be. This might be the single best debate this year. No yelling, very few interruptions, solid moderator, many topics discussed. It's insane how much more respectful and mature this was than the past few presidential debates. It's really a sign of how messed up things are that the majority of comments are people saying how amazing it is that two adults are talking like adults. Nice to see two people disagree on topics without ending in like, oh, bro, what the fuck? There's not a discussion of anything talked about here. Just it's like people are happy. It's like we're retards that can speak and be like, wow.
But there's that machinery Republican. They're all in bed still. They're all in bed. That section, I hope, comes to an end, but there'll always be those people. So I agree with you on that. But it was when you're in bed, especially now, I don't know how you define fascism, but fascism, the technical.
Fascism is when you have to call men women and women men or whatever.
Full definition of fascism is a public-private partnership with the government and private industry. Communism doesn't let you have private.
Fascism is when, okay.
But it was when you're in bed, especially now, I don't know how you define fascism, but fascism, the technical definition of fascism, is a public-private partnership with the government and private industry. Communism doesn't let you have private ownership. Fascism says, no, you can have private industry, but you're going to do it our way. And we'll let you have the company. And if you don't want to do it our way, we'll...
You know what? Actually, technically, he's actually not technically incorrect there, actually. Because I think this was a thing under... in Germany, right? The private companies still existed. They were just basically dictated to by the government. I think he's technically in like the historical foundations. I think he is actually, but this is one facet of it, of course. And fascism is not when the FBI says, hey, Twitter, we think there might be bots from China on your platform, but
will destroy you, take it away from you or whatever. We've been headed that way for 100+ years. Both sides have been doing it. Right now, the public-private partnership where the government says, we can't do this, but you can. That's fascism. That's wildly dangerous. And both sides have a propensity to do that because they both like power and both like control and money. But because of social media and Google and everything else, we are in a situation
like this, like Google is not fascism. Like
where who's controlling whom? Which one is more afraid of the other, the government or Google? Who's afraid of who? You know what I mean? Who has more power?
Well, I would say right now it feels as though the corporations have more power.
I agree with you.
Especially considering the fact that, corporate interests fund politicians on both sides of the political aisle. And so they're completely captured by corporate interests.
Correct.
And I think that has happened to the detriment of the American people, regardless of whether they vote Democrat or Republican. And so what I see as a bigger problem when it comes to this speech question and how it's impacting private companies is that private companies are increasingly catering to niche audiences or one side of the political spectrum over the other. And unfortunately, and I understand this because I think I was also kind of in that bubble of seeking content or information that only validated what I already believed because it's comfortable. And I totally understand why people do that. I used to do that myself. I didn't do it consciously. It was like a thing that I think I was just doing because it's like, I trust this source because this source is reporting accurately. But it turns out, no, I actually trust that source because that source is telling me what I want to hear.
I am so sick of the Hitler wasn't a socialist argument. Read this. Sorry for the length, but I wanted to make sure that we covered it from every angle. Still much more to write, but his should be more than enough. For those of you who are looking for the Cliff Notes version, here's the short answer. Yes, Hitler and the Nazis were socialists for the simple reasons that they were staunchly anti-capitalist and believed that the means of production in their society should be controlled by a centralized state power. That is very clear from their writings, their words, and their actions done and done. Well, centralized state power is not necessarily the workers, so we're already off to a bad start, but okay. Now, for those of you looking for a more complete and nuanced analysis of the topic, please consider the following thoughts. With a recent article in Vox as case in point, those who believe that Hitler and the Nazis were not socialists would generally put forward some version of the following arguments. Okay, don't care. Also, if you want like the real ultra super scalding, boiling hot takes, the reality is socialism and fascism and republicanism and democracy, all of these terms are actually fluid terms that change over time and they have different meanings for different people. And there probably is no hard set of rules or regulations that make you one thing or another. Governments are things constructed by people and they have many variations from one to the next.
Correct.
And so this is a huge problem because the divisions in the country and the inability, because the divisions in the country and the inability to have conversations with people you disagree with, I think is a product of the bubbles that we live in, right? The media bubbles we live in. And I don't know how to fix that. I mean, one way that I've tried is by providing counter narratives and a different point of view or playing devil's advocate on TYT. Or more importantly, if I've changed my mind, I want to be as honest with my audience as possible.
You have to.
And living in Los Angeles, living in California, which is completely controlled by the Democratic Party, it has allowed me to see some of the flaws in the policies that the Democratic Party is pushing for on a more national scale. And I don't want that to happen if I've experienced some of these policies and they
Is it wrong to say that politicians are captured by corporate interests? A big Bernie talking point. Is it because we don't have publicly funded elections? Politicians have to appeal to corporations to fund their campaigns via lobbying, super PACs, and donations. So here's what I think, okay? I think that people really want influence, and money doesn't always buy influence. I don't think money is what determines elections. I think influence and things adjacent to influence determine it. Remember, Trump was outspent by Kamala's campaign. And I think even when you consider all of the super PAC spending and everything as well, and all the PAC spending as well, Kamala outspent Trump, but she still lost. Okay. And the Democratic primary in 2020, there were 2 billionaires. They lost horribly. Money is not outcome determinative for an election. I think it's how much favorable influence you can get. And I don't know how much money can actually buy you.
Have not worked out so well. But what's interesting is the resistance to any of that critique that you'll see from, not everyone in the audience, not even the majority of the audience, but there's always that very loud minority of people who demand that you only tell them what they want to hear.
I know.
And validate what they already believe.
Or you're a traitor.
Or you're a traitor, exactly. Yeah. Or a grifter.
I think, one of the things, I love that one.
Yeah.
I was against Trump in 2016, very vocal about it.
I remember.
And I was a traitor and a grifter. I was just trying to make my... And then he did some things that I said he'll never do. And I agreed with the policies. And I had said, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I did. And I was a grifter and a traitor again. I mean, it's just, there's no... there's no way to win. More with Anna here in just a second. First, we're all getting older. And I don't know about... They can paint. I've done it. We're a fundraiser. The cool... Now, a couple of days. I have hope that there's been a sea change. We're at the very beginning of it. But... You know, it's strange. I was just talking to Donald Trump. I was doing a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago a couple of days ago. And I said, I think like we're like the cool kids now. I've never been at the cool kids table.
This is wild. I look, I'm going to pause on saying the cool kids.
No,
I will say this.
But we've never been even near the cool kids. We're in the hallway of the cool kids table. You know what I mean? I know that. But we've never, I mean, and he said, YMCA. How is YMCA suddenly cool?
It's not just about that. You know, Trump is, and the audience hates when I say this, but it's just demonstrably true. He's funny. He's an entertainer. I mean, he was an entertainer.
How do you think the unification of the populist will last? Populism always goes through, I think, like predictable ups and downs. When populists become popular and then they're given the reins to control things, what you find out is like, oh, actually the problems in society were nowhere near as simple as they thought. They don't get anything done. And then eventually populist fervor collapses because they're like, oh, well, this sucks. And then you go back to whatever bullshit you had before. And the audience hates when I say this, but it's just demonstrably true. He's funny. He's an entertainer. I mean, he was an entertainer before, you know, he was a politician, that's for sure.
That's what also caused near the cool kids. Like, we're in the hallway of the cool kids table. You know what I mean? I know that, but we've never, I mean, and he said, YMCA. How is YMCA suddenly cool?
It's not just about that. You know, Trump is, and the audience hates when I say this, but it's just demonstrably true. He's funny. Which audience hates when you say this? Like, literally everybody agrees with this. Who disagrees with this? Like, I don't know why. I don't know why or how people will say things like, "I'm gonna say this take," and I get a lot of hate for this one. I get a lot of hate for this one, and my audience hates it, and people don't want to face the facts. But Biden is old now. I get a lot of pushback from my audience. It's like, wow. It's crazy how fast a shift in values can occur with certain people just because they had one bad experience with the worst element of their side. If you can switch out all of your values overnight, you never cared about them in the first place. It's annoying that people like Anna don't even notice how their shift is all about self-preservation and not even about having some kind of revelation. Yeah, but I mean, like the reality is they never had strong values in the first place. That's how it works, right? An entertainer. I mean, he was an entertainer before, you know, he was a politician, that's for sure.
That's what also causes trouble for him.
It does. It certainly does. Yeah. But, you know, I think the reason why you're feeling how you're feeling about the perception of the Republican Party now versus, you know, the Bush era.
Hang on a second. I don't want to say Republican Party because that's not cool. That'll never be cool. There's this new coalition of Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Elon Musk, people that are coming from all different points of view. It's the way America that I grew up in. It's the way America was. We disagree on a lot, but we have one central vision, and that is, in this case, end this corruption, end this nonsense.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. And, you know, the CEO and my co-host, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, he is really trying to bring like a populist coalition of people together, you know, and individuals, basically Americans who see the rot in our political system thanks to the corruption. And so it's been his top issue ever since I've met him. And so he's been trying to get money out of politics. So these politicians actually represent what the people want, as opposed to what a small group of corporate executives want. And I think that's really the key in fixing what's broken in our political system. The other thing is, I mean, look, members of Congress really should see themselves as public servants, as opposed to individuals who are elected into office just to enrich themselves.
All of them should be.
So we have to ban their ability to trade individual stocks. I mean, this is madness that they're able to do this.
Just as a heads up, anybody that talks about how we need to worry about the money that people are making as politicians and wants to talk about individual stocks, like stock trades from Congress, before they want to even have a conversation about the multiple billionaires that Trump is outfitting his cabinets with, is a deeply unserious person. These are not serious people with serious political views. These are grifters that are saying things that they know their audience wants to hear because they're nice slogans and they sound good and they just get money by saying them. That's it. What a stupid fucking point. You want to talk about getting money out of politics and you don't want to address the fact that the richest man in the world is now a part of the government? You want to go after, what do you think is the average net worth? Average net worth, Congress. As of 2020, over half the members of Congress were millionaires, and the median net worth of members was approximately $1 million. So if Congress has Is it 538 members between the Senate and the House? The entirety of Congress is worth maybe around $600, $700 million. 535. So the net worth of all of Congress is probably less than $1 billion. I think maybe. Wait, what is Pelosi? There are a couple of like outliers that might drive that up a lot. Pelosi's husband does like a lot. He's like a broker or some bullshit. Maybe they're worth $250 million. Maybe actually. So maybe the collective net worth of Congress might be under $1 billion. Elon Musk made. How much did Elon Musk's net worth increase election? Elon Musk made in appreciation of total wealth $70 billion, 70 times the collective net worth of our entire Congress over the election. That's not how much he's worth. That's how much his worth increased by, right? Like, you want to talk about stock trades? Get the out of here, dude.
So we have to ban their ability to trade individual stocks. I mean, this is madness that they're able to do this.
Ban the trading of stocks. Do not allow them to go into any business that they had any regulation or anything for at least 10 years.
I totally agree.
This revolving door is obscene, absolutely obscene.
Like going from being a man who sells contracts to the government to being part of the government efficiency, like Elon, like you lose. It's so funny because these people will say like, you've lost all moral high ground because of the pardoning of Hunter Biden. What about, hello? Please clip this. Anna or Glenn Beck. God, I would love a conversation. Please, God. I'm so respectful and nice and kind.
I say this kindly because I've been on the other side of the table. And I wish people had given me the benefit of the doubt of being a decent human being and actually meaning what I say, because I do. So I say this believing you're an actual decent human being. Okay.
Okay.
Jesus. Okay. That median number. Remember, median is your middle set of data, so the mean could be higher or lower depending on what your outliers are. This is saying the total net worth of everyone in Congress is $5 billion as of 2011. So maybe they're collectively all worth $10 billion. I'm not sure. This is going by average and not median. So, but there you go. I don't know how much this has changed between now and 10 years ago. So.
The one thing that I look for in people who say, I've seen the light, is I know when I've changed, and I've changed many big points of view and many big things in my life, but I can tell you what color the carpet was when I had that epiphany. I can tell you the time of day. I can tell you everything about that moment because it was like, holy mother, I'm wrong. And time stopped and you remember it.
Right.
If you're sincere.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think for some people, change comes slowly, and especially if your career and your life depends on a particular identity, a particular outward identity, you're going to resist internal change. And you're going to resist and resist and resist until you can't resist anymore. That's what I feel happened to me.
Okay, so wait. So then what was, I think we might be saying similar things, because it's not, the heavens didn't open up.
Right.
You all of a sudden go, I can't do this. I can't say this anymore. So was there a time, yes, it happened slowly, but was there a moment that changed you and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore.
I mean, I would say,
well, people called me a birthing person instead of a woman, and then people made fun of me about a homeless guy. So once that happened, I realized that I needed a 180 on my lifetime of political beliefs and come and support your guys' side.
The phrase "I can't do it anymore"
is
for me
person.
Applies to a handful of policy issues that the Democratic Party has been championing that I don't agree with.
So there's no personal, there was no personal event or anything that happened in your life to where you went,
I mean, I was sexually assaulted by a homeless guy.
Right?
Okay.
One.
Yeah, I was sexually.
That was one. Do the birthing person one next.
assaulted by a homeless guy in Los Angeles in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog.
Oh my gosh.
And it was awful. I mean, I've talked about it multiple times. And look, I don't want to put myself in this position of being like this victim who's looking for empathy, but it is the moment where something very scary happened to me. And
why did that?
It wasn't just that had happened to me. It was the reaction I received from a faction of the left, okay? The social justice left, if you want to call it that, who think that, you know, in some cases, the criminals are actually the victims and the victims are the criminals. Like, it's insane. And I don't know how big this faction is, but they're loud enough to push me away completely. And so
I don't know how big this faction is. Aren't you a media professional? Don't you think that should be like important? Like maybe like part of your fucking job to know how big those people are?
it wasn't that had happened to me. It was the reaction of the left and how they were far more concerned with me talking about it because they felt that was stigmatizing the homeless community. I have never gone out of my way to say negative things about homeless people. I mean, people who are living out on the streets are, in a lot of cases, victims who need help, right?
Yes.
But I was victimized by a guy that was strung out on something. Could have been meth. You know, he was jerking around as he was walking toward me with his buddy. And
gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But it took a while for me to get over that because I still have to walk my dog. And so multiple times a day, I literally have to think about that incident. And so I thought maybe it would help to talk about it. And then when I did talk about it, I totally regretted it because I was shocked at the way people reacted to me. But what that moment taught me was some of the characteristics of the quote unquote left that I thought were good, right? Like the kindness, the open-mindedness, the willingness to go out of your way to look out for people who need help, like that kind of stuff. There's a portion of the left that has shed those characteristics. They've taken on a more nihilistic approach to things, and they don't even believe in reforms. They just believe that everything about every political system, every program we have, every institution we have is just worthless and we need to burn it all down.
Isn't that kind of like what you two believe right now? I'm so curious if we ever come back to this point. What are the institutions or current parts of our system that you want to save? And the answer needs to be something more substantive than Bill of Rights.
Okay. So that nihilistic nature, I think, leads to a lot of really bad ideas and terrible behavior online. And that's pushing people out, pushing people away. And you look at places like Los Angeles, for instance, right? Or Cook County, which is where Chicago is. I paid very close attention to Cook County and what the election results were going to be in Cook County, because you have an influx of migrants going to Chicago, right? You have a lot of anger among the black community in Chicago because they've been nickel and dimed by their local government.
It's crazy.
And at the same time, their mayor, Brandon Johnson, is doling out the cash for migrants and justifying it. And so they're angry. And so I'm watching is the black have an influx of migrants going to Chicago, right? You have a lot of anger among the black community in Chicago because they've been nickel and dimed by their local government.
It's crazy.
And at the same time, their mayor, Brandon Johnson, is doling out the cash for migrants and justifying it. And so they're angry. And so I'm watching all of this happen, and I'm just like, Democrats.
I don't even know what. I don't even know how to look. How much money is the mayor allocating to, when she says migrants, does she mean illegal migrants? And we're just like mixing all the terms up because it's just scary foreigner people, and it's all like, it's okay.
Democrats need to wake up because more and more voters feel like they're being abandoned by the Democratic Party, economically speaking. And everyone got mad at me. Everyone's like, oh, you're anti-immigrant. I'm not anti-immigrant. I'm not anti-immigrant.
Immigrants built this country.
Yes, my parents are immigrants.
Yes.
Okay, I am not anti-immigrant. But I do have a problem with the Biden administration neglecting the border, pretending like there wasn't a migrant crisis at all, allowing these municipalities to be inundated with migrants without any federal resources to deal with the problem. And what? We're going to pretend like that's not going to cause electoral harm? Of course it is. So when you look at places like LA, there was an 11-point swing toward the Republican Party. Kamala Harris still won, LA County, but 11% toward Republicans, that's crazy in Los Angeles.
My problem with the policy there, again, I could be friends and debate and whatever with anyone.
The Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program, this is part of, I believe, authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act, delivers $350 billion to state, territorial, local, and tribal governments across the country to support the response to and recovery from COVID-19. There was so much money under the Biden admin that was given out to local governments, state, city governments. But okay.
If it's honest, Thomas Jefferson said, question with boldness even the very existence of God, for if there be a God, he must surely.
God, stop quoting these old f***ing people that you know nothing about and don't give a about what they think about any of this shit. God, it's so fucking cringe. You would appeal to people that would kill themselves if they saw somebody like Donald Trump winning the fucking White House. It is so fucking cringe.
Other honest questioning over blindfolded fear. Honest questioning means if I ask you a question and you present me with an answer and I'm like, I'm open to changing. You know what I mean? We don't have honest questioning. We now have got you questioning. We have cancel you questioning. And beyond that, we have this system that props up lies and a government that is willing to engage in lies. If you wanted to bring people in and open the borders the way you did, and then move people with our tax dollars on airplanes to cities where you're changing everything in that city, can we have that conversation first? And part of the problem was they were saying it's not happening. Well, yes, it is. And you're doing it behind our back in the middle of the night.
Well, it's interesting because, and look, I can definitely be honest about my own flaws and my own mistakes because I bought the mainstream media narrative that there wasn't a migrant crisis.
Really?
And yeah, I did believe it. I believe because, look, I was an idiot because, I mean, who do you trust in today's media landscape, right? There's a lot of liars out there.
Yeah,
and when it comes to mainstream media, the fact of the matter is they do play defense more and more for the Democratic Party. And that's an issue because there was a time when that didn't happen. And so I still believed in their good faith reporting, even though it turns out, a lot of these reports would omit really important details about what's really going on. And so it wasn't until Texas Governor Greg Abbott started busing or sending migrants to blue cities where that woke me up. That woke a lot of people up. And suddenly America realizes, there is a migrant crisis.
Why did that wake you up?
Well, because all of a sudden you're seeing migrants sleeping on the floor in the police department in Chicago because they don't have shelter for these people, right?
There were no homeless people in Chicago before they bust them up? Is that the implication?
You're seeing, these. I love watching streams of city council meetings because that's how you understand what's really going on in these cities, right? These are real people who live there and they get their opportunity to speak.
Chicago's been an amazing thing to watch.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch every city council meeting from Chicago because it's incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
And for me, rather than relying on mainstream media reporting or anyone's reporting, to be quite honest with you, what I'll do is I'll go out of my way and I'll watch, the entirety of a government function, local government function. I talk to real people and I get a sense of where hearts and minds really are. And so on election night, I wasn't surprised at all. I knew it was coming. I totally knew it was coming. I knew that Cook County was going to swing, I think it's about 8 percentage points toward Republicans. I knew LA County, and this is what I was surprised about. I did not expect Donald Trump to flip 10 counties in California from blue to red. But I guess I shouldn't have been surprised about that either. Because when you look at the conditions that people are living in a Democrat-controlled state, well, yeah, you can understand why people are turning their backs on the Democratic Party. You can understand why people are frustrated at the corruption, at the loss of $24 billion that was allocated to help the homeless, when homelessness only exploded during that time, and that money is now unaccounted for. It was funneled to nonprofits whose executives get paid minimum $200,000, $250,000 a year, and they have multiple executives who are making at least that or more. And you just see the waste, and you see the real grift. And so for people out there who are concerned about the grifters, take a good hard look at the systemic grifting that's happening right now. It's disgusting.
It is, again, I think, the problem with a public-private partnership.
100%, yes.
Stop it. These NGOs, let them raise their own money. Let them, if they're doing good, they will prosper. People will find them. The government just funneling millions of dollars. It's a money laundering. Ukraine, I don't know where you stand in Ukraine, but good God, man, that is a money laundering system, and millions are being affected, and hundreds of thousands are in a meat grinder right now. For what? I
mean, look, I think that the UK and the US made a big mistake in discouraging Volodymyr Zelensky from continuing or engaging in peace negotiations early on in that war. So that's the strongest opinion I have about what has transpired in Ukraine. My heart goes out to the Ukrainians. They're trying to defend themselves. They were invaded wrongfully, obviously, but I feel that the way the United States has carried out its foreign policy, certainly, starting in the Bush years, and it's only gotten worse from that, it's not really benefiting anybody. And it's certainly not benefiting the American people, which is another reason why I think you're noticing a bit of a shift or a realignment when it comes to our political parties. And look,
it's bizarre.
Trump came in and he just kind of messed everything up in the Republican Party. And it's really weird to find myself in this place where you hear Republican voters take on this anti-war, identity. And Democratic voters take on a more pro-war, neoconservative type thing.
Just think of how fucking retarded the framing is. Pro-war and anti-war. They shouldn't even call it pro-vax or anti-vax. The vaxxers should just call it are you pro-stabbing? Or are you anti-stabbing? I'm anti-stabbing. I don't like when doctors stab people. What a reductionally stupid way of viewing the world. She has no excuse.
Kamala speech at the convention it was what? Yeah. Are you Dick Cheney? What is that?
Not Dick Cheney. She was honored by his
I know.
Which disgusted me.
But I think there's something to be said that I think with conservatives, the definition of conservative, what I believe is the right definition, is we look at things that are happening. What's working? Save that. Get that part out of here because it's corrupt, it's garbage, it's old think, whatever. And progressive should be, we're more anxious to move forward. Let's go. The two of those things together is what provides the balance, you know?
Totally. You need that tension.
You need that. Yeah. It's important. It's an eagle. Can't fly with just one wing. But when you look at what has happened to the conservatives, I started changing 2006. I mean, I was all for the war. I was all for it. Yeah, I was all for it because I believed that we could change things. I was dumb enough to believe that you can hand people freedom and they want it, or it will just work. It barely works here. You know what I mean? You have to earn it. You have to want it. And I was also naive enough to think that we were the good guys.
That's a great point. I mean, look at Iran. I mean, we orchestrated a coup in Iran, which is part of the reason why, you have this theocratic, situation that we're now fighting against.
Right.
Doing regime change is not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
The U.S. should not be in the business of engaging in regime change wars, period.
George, I don't know if you've read his farewell address. Okay. If we would just do that, we would have been fine. But the State Department for decades has been on this path of we're going to control everything. If you're a country that says we don't torture, but we'll ghost plane you to some place that will torture, you're a monster.
100%.
You're a monster.
100%. I can't believe I'm hearing you say this stuff.
I've said this for years.
I've
said it for years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
But you have to be consistent with your principles. And I think there's a lot of conservatives, and I'm so happy to see that now there are some Democrats that are doing the same thing. Like, I was for big food. I was for big pharma. And then I saw it. And I feel like saying to Democrats, guys, you were right. Now, why have you abandoned that?
How do you push back on someone who is this deep in the anti-America rhetoric? I mean, like, it's like going to watch a movie and you're asking, like, how do we make it so, like, Harry Potter doesn't win in the end? Like, you can't. This is a performance where both of these people have agreed to come on and chat, and it's going to be what it is. There is no way to push, like, you're watching these people do this. And these are the only types of movies that they want to make, are ones that support their narrative.
Position, because we would agree. We could get so much done.
Can I ask you something? I'm genuinely curious what you think about this, because I started to really sour on Biden when, in my opinion, he was pretending to fight for his agenda. And part of his agenda was to allow for our Medicare system to just simply negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. Believe it or not, and this is the most anti-capitalist thing imaginable, right? Because capitalism, you're supposed to have competition. You're supposed to welcome negotiation.
Yes.
Our Medicare system, not allowed to negotiate drug prices. So he was pursuing a provision in his Build Back Better plan that would allow for the negotiations to happen. Well, then they whittled it down to 10 pharmaceutical drugs. Oh, what can we do? This is the thing. The Democrats like to play good cop, bad cop. So you'll have the majority of the Democratic Party, in the Senate in particular, pretend like they're all on board with Biden's agenda and the idea of having Medicare negotiate drug prices.
We have the same problem in the Republican Party, by the way.
And then you'll always have the bad cops who are willing to raise their hands and basically torpedo that provision. And that's essentially what happened with Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. But don't make the mistake of thinking they were the only ones, because sitting on the bleachers waiting were other corporate Democrats who would step in if they needed to prevent the passage of that provision. And so I love
we're not going to talk about every single Republican in lockstep who voted against it. I love how you have Glenn Beck over here, who is an unashamed deep throater of every single conservative. He's like, oh yeah, keep going. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, does she not, like, she's literally the, as like Anna comes on their program, like, yes. Oh yeah. Manchin, cinema. Yes. Keep giving me the horrible the corporate Dems. I'm sorry. Did you say donor class? Yes. Give me that. More of that. Yes. More of the donor class. Oh, yeah, the billionaires, the corporate Dems. Yes, the Dems are now doing hawkish foreign policy. Absolutely, yes. Oh my, it's the Dems that are, you said pro-war. Now Republicans are anti-war. Give me Ukraine, and the Democrats are supporting Ukraine now, right? And we're not even doing anything about homeless people, and we're getting illegal immigrants that the Dems are taking, and they're destroying healthcare, and they don't want to do anything for the, like, it's literally, it's like this, like, just come here and like shit on the Dems for it. Like, like.
Watching Democrats celebrate themselves because now Medicare can negotiate.
Like, we're not going to talk at all. Who do you think is blocking these reforms? You know that Trump is the one that tried to actually kill all parts of the ACA when he came in. We're just going to pretend that didn't happen?
The drug prices of 10...
Here's a question. We're 35 minutes left. I don't think a single negative thing has been said by Trump or the Republican Party right now. Do you think a single negative thing will be said about Trump or the Republicans by the end of this?
10 drugs. And sure, that's better than nothing. But I mean, I'm not going to give you a reward for whittling down a policy that made sense. That would have saved taxpayers in this country a lot of money.
I think we could come to agreement on this easily. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm so excited about RFK. Get them out of government. Mm-hmm. Get them out. I don't want them anywhere. I want our government to have that limited work of just, who do you run to if the police are in part of it? You can't. Mm-hmm. You can't run to the press and say, hey, look, because the press no longer is protecting the little guy. They're protecting the pharmaceutical company or the government, which is the same.
The press was doing positive PR for the Democrats on this issue, as the Democrats essentially destroyed their own agenda. Okay, like it was ridiculous. So I just, if you're going to run to the press to get accurate information about what's going on, I mean,
what I'm saying though on that is there is no good cop. Mm.
Name 5 bad policies from Trump except tariffs. I bet you can't. Was that supposed to be tariffs? It's hard to name bad policies from Donald Trump because Donald Trump didn't have any policies. But I would say that the only major piece of legislation he had, the tax cuts, I think that having massive tax cuts, especially the disproportionately award wealthy people, without pairing them with spending cuts, so to increase deficit spending, in a time when the economy is already booming, I would say that was bad. I would say that his repealing of the ACA's mandate for everybody to purchase health insurance, I would say that was bad. I would say that his attempt to repeal DACA was bad. He only failed because the Supreme Court said that he didn't do it properly. I would say that when he banned travel from 7 Muslim majority countries just because he wanted to, I would say that was bad. I think that the tariffs that Donald Trump did was bad. We ended up having to pay huge government subsidies to like soybean farmers and stuff in order to compensate them for the losses that happened as a result of those tariffs. I would say that his policy of relentless support for Israel was bad. And backing Netanyahu when he was talking about defunding UNRWA, I would say that his recognizing of the moving the embassy to Jerusalem with no strings attached, I would say that was bad. I think that his lack of big support or strong support for Ukraine when Russia was actively fighting the Donbass was bad. I can think of things that he didn't do that was bad, but the problem is that Trump did so little as a leader. It's hard to even say like this policy was bad because he was so ineffectual as a leader. Like foreign policy wise, his meetings with Kim Jong-un were fucking cringe and bad. Everything relating to the wall and having to use the military to build the wall through executive action because he couldn't get any congressional support on it was bad. I don't know. What do you mean?
Mm-hmm. We are a system of checks and balances. Congress and the Senate, they're all backroom deals. I talk to congressmen and senators who say, what the hell am I even doing here? We don't debate anything. We don't talk about anything. They come out and say, here it is. You have 10 minutes to read it and vote, and you're voting this way. There's no checks and balances.
You really think that that's how all congressional legislation happens, and it's just immediately shoved in front of them, and then they don't check any of it? Is that
the administration? Does the president work for all of these administrators? Or do the administrators work for the elected guy? Mm-hmm. You know, it's all out of control. And the one that we're supposed to watch is the media. And the media, and now with big tech, they're all part of that system. We have to find a way to go back to I really feel like if we could, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? Mm-hmm. And reset it to its factory settings? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There are things that we need that we can't cut. There are things that we've got. But we have got to, it's rotted from the inside on both sides. Mm-hmm. We have.
Remember, what was her complaint earlier?
All of the.
Now, maybe she's about to push back. Okay. Maybe she's about to push back.
And they don't even believe in reforms. They just believe that everything about every political system, every program we have, every institution we have is just worthless and we need to burn it all down.
Set it to its factory settings. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There are things that we need that we can't cut. There are things that we've got. But we have got to, it's rotted from the inside on both sides. Mm-hmm. We have to, I don't want to, the American idea is right. It's
isn't he basically saying the same thing? We literally need a whole reset on everything.
I really feel like if we could, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? Mm-hmm. And reset it to its factory settings? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There are things that we...
how is that so much different than what you were talking about here?
That kind of stuff. There's a portion of the left that has shed those characteristics. They've taken on a more nihilistic approach to things, and they don't even believe in reforms. They just believe that everything about every political system, every program we have, every institution we have is just worthless and we need to burn it all down. Okay. So that nihilistic nature.
Maybe she's about to push back, though.
Need that we can't cut. There are things that we've got. But we have got to, it's rotted from the inside on both sides. We have to, I don't want to, the American idea is right. It's great. It's to create a more perfect nation, meaning we're never going to be perfect. And the mission statement in the Declaration of Independence, there's nothing more inspiring from any country in the history of the world than that. I want to try to create that, knowing we'll never get there, but we can make progress towards it. So we can't jettison everything, but we have got to go in with, I don't even know if you can do it with surgical knives anymore because it's so big and out of control. Just start chopping down some of the, reshaping the tree.
Yeah, there's been a lot of attention focused on, DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency and what they're going to focus their energies on.
She's not going to she's not about to fucking support Doge, is she? That's not about to happen, right? No shot, dude. Why? No, they are. Don't get upset. This is theater. It's all a show.
And focused on, DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency and what they're going to focus their energies on.
But I actually think it's good that we finally have somebody, looking at bureaucratic waste and corruption. Finally, because we've never had that ever before. Finally, we have somebody looking at this.
I'm cautiously optimistic, mostly because of the fact that a lot of the conversation is focused on the Pentagon. And there's agreement on both sides of the political aisle that there needs to be a serious accounting for all of the resources that are being squandered on the Pentagon.
But that also has to happen in things that you're going to like. I mean, I believe.
Oh, so Doge, the company that's headed by Elon Musk, or the thing that's going to be headed by Elon Musk, who makes money selling military contracts to the government, is going to be the one that you want auditing the military spending of the government? Oh, okay. Glad that we need to stop congressmen from trading stocks because it might influence their decisions. Thanks for that one, Anna.
If the Pentagon is completely out of control.
Yeah, they haven't been able to pass a single audit. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Neither of them even know what that even means because it's a joke. I'm sorry. Don't get mad. This is theater. We're meant to be entertained. Neither of them know what the auditing thing means. Or maybe they do know and they're just intentionally lying about it, but that's okay. That's fine. It's just a joke. That's okay. It's good. It's a joke. It's a meme.
So I completely agree with that, but I believe defense is very important. We could go back and forth. But there's also stuff on the other side. We have squandered trillions of dollars. We don't even, how do we have a government that says, geez, where did we put that $2 trillion?
That's not what that was at all, but that's okay. Can you explain what the audit thing is? Basically, I think it was like in the year 2000, I think the government wanted to change how the accounting and auditing procedures were handled by all the different administrative departments in the government. And for the Pentagon, they started to transition over to the system. It wasn't even supposed to begin until 2010. And then I think it's supposed to be done generally by 2028. But it's just it's a system of how they account for things. It's not that the money's actually gone. It's just the way that they run their audits and their processes has to be a certain way. But when they say the Pentagon has failed the last 7 audits, there's only been 7 audits. They've just started this new auditing process and procedure. That's it. There's not this whole black hole of missing money that's totally unaccounted for. It's just a lie. It's just not true.
How does it happen?
Yeah, it's crazy. It is. I mean, I agree with you. I think that even when it comes to, look, I agree with programs that are meant to help the homeless. I totally am. So that's the type of, those are the types of policies. If they're effective, but there's a lot of waste because the way that those policies are being implemented in places like California isn't really meant to help the homeless. It's about funneling taxpayer money to nonprofits.
Yes.
That's what it's about. And so when we talk about waste, I'm open-minded about taking a look at these government agencies and really questioning whether these massive bureaucracies make sense, right? Whether the money is well spent on various programs. Let's do a little bit of testing to see if these policies or these programs are even effective.
Yeah, we don't do that. There's no testing for any government, anything. They just basically throw money blindly at things. And then this is like when people will look at a study and it's like, study says eating meat bad for you. And they're like, I wonder if they controlled for obesity levels. I wonder if this study that was published in Nature from this guy who's got a high impact factor journal and a guy who's published 52 articles on this. I wonder if he even considered for 1 microsecond about the socioeconomic status. Idiot. Did you ever fucking think about that? How is this your job? How is this your job? Do you get to say the most retarded shit? I wonder if the government has ever even thought about how the money is spent. We should test for it. Yeah, no fucking shit. It's okay. This is a meme. It's 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 a meme. This is a meme.
In carrying out what their objective is.
See, this is why I think the 10th Amendment is so important. It creates 50 laboratories. You want universal health care in Massachusetts? Have it. Do it. Vote for it. You want it in California? Have it. Do it. If it works, we'll do it. If it doesn't work, You can't just say, oh, we need bailout from the federal government. Why should I pay for something that doesn't work? You know what I mean? And if there's 50 laboratories, somebody's going to come up with something better. You know what I mean? But we have all of this federal regulation to stop people from trying things that might work. You know?
So are you consistent on that issue, though, on the idea of states' rights? And
hold on. Are we about to get 45 and a half minutes in? Anna Kasparian, who definitely hasn't become far right, is finally giving us our first piece of pushback against Glenn Beck. Here we go.
You know?
So are you consistent on that issue, though, on the idea of states' rights and allowing for the federal government to just kind of take a step back?
It seems like a setup question.
No,
but yes.
it's not a gotcha or anything. But mostly because in conversations with Republicans or with conservatives or anyone on the right, they tend to have this idea of states' rights when it comes to economic policies or things like healthcare, as you mentioned. But then it comes to some of the more conservative social issues where they do want the federal government to be involved and have a standard. Like, for instance,
why is she's stepping into a loser issue? What are the two issues that she could possibly fight on here? Abortion or gun control? Because for abortion, Glenn Beck gets to win and say, well, abortion is left up to the states now. And for gun control, he gets to win because he can say, well, that's defended in the Constitution. What issue is she possibly going to step into here where she can win this?
You know, there's a small but loud group of people who are on, Trump's case about not wanting to pursue a federal ban on abortion.
Yeah, and now he's just going to say, well, Trump has said he's not going to sign a federal ban for abortion. That's why I support that. And he's going to say, and I don't know if I would support a federal ban on abortion.
Right.
I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Federal government has nothing to do with it. The Supreme Court has ruled with it. I don't think you can legislate morality. I think the problem with the abortion case is on the right side. Forget about the baby for a second. Mom. Why is she in it? She is most likely not in it in this situation because she's like, I want to shout my abortion.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They're in trouble.
Yep.
Something has happened. Something has failed. They have no framework around them to help them. We cannot just say to that person, no, because they'll go someplace else.
True.
We have to care about the baby and the mother and help fix.
Why have they not updated the Pentagon spending system or tracking? Why not just fix the issue now instead of letting it go on? They are updating it. What do you mean? I think they either passed the largest percentage of or they partially passed the last one they did. The Pentagon has been updating our stuff. It's a work in progress. It takes a long time. There's a whole bunch of different administrative stuff that's going on there to change how they do the entire accounting for that the department or whatever.
What's broken? When somebody is using abortion for birth control, I don't even understand your moral sense, but I understand 80%, I bet, of people who are having an abortion. There's no law that will fix that. None. We have to find the way by working reasonably with each other. You know, I went to GLAAD and met with GLAAD this years ago when Iran was throwing gays off of the rooftop. I've always been for gay marriage. I'm more libertarian. I don't care. Marry who you want. Don't tell me and my church what I have to do, and I'm not going to tell you what you have to do. And I went to GLAAD and I said, look, we could argue all day long about wedding cakes. They're throwing people off the roofs because they're gay. This will be wildly unpopular with my audience, and it will be wildly unpopular with your audience. But why don't we come together and say, we disagree on a whole bunch of stuff, but this we agree on. Life has meaning. Okay? They wouldn't do it.
Interesting. Okay.
Until we have the guts to stand up and say, look, this is going to be unpopular on my side. It's going to be unpopular on your side. But we're both reasonable. Laws, when it's oppressive, when they're just forced on you, it feels oppressive. We have to change the hearts and minds. And the only way we're going to do that is by talking to each other
100%.
and actually looking at the problem, not just saying, oh, it's the homeless. That means, my father used to say, I'd say, Dad, I want to talk about God. Okay, we cannot talk about God. What do you mean?
I like how he kind of weaseled his way out of that. He didn't even... Glenn Beck, I just remember this after I said it. Glenn Beck actually is super anti-abortion, from a crazy moral standpoint. I wonder if she's going to ask me, so would you support a federal abortion ban? He weaseled his way out of that very carefully, because what he's saying basically is, well, I want every state to vote against it, is kind of what he made the argument for. Do you think she'll ask him that again? Because he basically hinted at that, but didn't say as much.
Let's call him first cause, because God means something different to you than it does me. First cause, we don't have any images in our head. So we start from there. When we say, we want to talk about abortion, it means something to you, means something to me that's deeply seated in us. True. We have to find our way to the compassionate core of the human experience.
How do we get there? What is your suggestion?
Oh, that was it. Okay. Well, nice. Man, what do we do? Well, we got to trust Donald Trump to tear down and rebuild the entire system.
Suggestion.
I have for so long waited for a fair interview on my side. from somebody who doesn't agree with me. I can get fair interviews. I can get bad interviews from people who agree with me. And I don't mind somebody reporting something and me going, well, I don't think that's exactly true, but I can see how you got there. There's no such thing as it's all a setup. All of it is a setup.
Yep.
And you know it because you're on the other side. And I'm sure people on both sides right now with you. That's why before we started, the only thing I said to you was, you're in a safe zone. I'm not trying to get you. That has to happen. And the only way that happens is back to Jefferson. Honest questioning. I really want to know how you got there. When we talk to each other and I've got an agenda. Oh, you know what? I've got some people coming over for Christmas. I know exactly. I'm going to say this and they're going to say that. And then I can get them to that. That's not honest. When you say, I'm not going to talk to you because I disagree, what I'm actually saying is, I'm smarter than you and you have nothing to teach me.
Yeah, and ironically, that's actually the dumbest way to proceed, because one thing that I have noticed is as the left kind of avoids any debate or conversation with individuals they disagree with.
And the right doesn't? Excuse me? Who are all of these big right-leaning people that are out here doing debates? What? I'm sorry. Just a meme. It's a joke. That was a joke.
Well, their ideas don't really get challenged, right? Your ideas get challenged in a debate, in a good faith debate. I'm not talking about, gross, rolling around the mud type stuff. But, I like when my ideas are challenged because it forces me to consider the flaws or a blind spot that I might have.
Yes.
And that's so I want to make good arguments.
I think the left is so weak right now, so easy to take apart.
Yes, you're right about that.
I've been thrown up against the wall for the last 20 years saying, you're a racist, you're a bigot. You can only have that said to you if you're a good, decent person so long before you go, am I? What?
Yeah, and how much on the left can you be told, like, oh, you're a communist, you're a Marxist, you hate women, you're trying to destroy the family, you're trying to murder baby, you're trying to, what
am I doing that makes me appear that way? What is it? And you self-examine and you either fix or you become stronger. No one's thrown the left up against the wall. I don't think people have any idea how to defend what they think they're for.
I mean, it's interesting because I've been forced to realize this when I've been making arguments to my audience, to the left, in regard to, hey, you know what? We've implemented this criminal justice reform policy, and it's actually not working out the way we expected. We need to tweak it here, recalibrate it there, and maybe, this policy could actually work out really well. Let's fix these little gaps that we see. And rather than consider that I'm coming at them in good faith because I want these policies to work, all they do is just call you a grifter. Okay, that's it. And that's the thing. You can call me whatever you want. Call me a grifter if you want.
Yeah.
But please try to contend with what I'm saying. Debate me on this. I want to have an actual exchange. If you just think that you're going to call me a grifter and move along and that's good enough, that's not good enough. Okay, that makes you look weak.
There are so many times, I've said this for years, please tell me, not that I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong. I want to be wrong.
Exactly.
I want to be wrong on some of these things. But we don't do that. So let me turn that question back to you. Nobody trusts anything.
Right.
I mean, I'm a conservative. The FBI is a danger to our society. The Department of Justice, yes, it is. And I used to be, I trust those guys. I don't trust any of it anymore. And it's American and responsible to not trust blindly.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when you don't have anything and you're not even sure the people you're talking about are grounded in the Constitution, actually do not want a theocracy, do not want a fascist state, do not want a communist state. They do care and are willing to say, man, this kills me to say it, but you have the right to believe that. If you don't have that trust, how do we gain that trust back?
Honestly, we can talk about things like transparency, more accountability in the media, stuff like that. But I think a lot of what we're seeing in the country right now stems...
I don't even know, bro. The reason why I write this stupid shit down and we read stuff and we go over articles and we watch macro econ classes, because I feel like this is my job. I get paid a lot of money for this. So I want to be good at it. I want to know what I'm talking about, right? What if I imagine instead of Anna and instead of Glenn Beck, you just pulled a random centrist dipshit and some random Republican dipshit and then put them in a room and had them talk for an hour and 5 minutes about the current media environment? We would get about the same thing. What is the point of these two people speaking? This shit is your job. I don't have any solid examples. I just have slogans and talking points. Don't let Congress people trade stocks. Make government more efficient. Don't call people racist. It's just these are conservative copy pasted talking points. This is a waste of everybody's time.
from economic frustration. And you have to think about it this way. When Americans feel like they have no stake in the game, that's where the nihilism comes from. When you feel like you have nothing to lose, that's what's going to give you the type of mentality that's going to allow you to literally shoot and kill a United Healthcare CEO in cold blood, in broad daylight, okay? We have some real problems in this country right now.
Right, but that's...
And I'm not justifying that that happened at all.
Yeah.
But you have to think about what led someone like that guy to think it was okay to carry that out in the morning, okay? Like,
right, but it doesn't...
In New York City,
I just want to
Do you think she would say, because I don't support these people either, but would she say the same thing, what led the one guy to shoot the two cops that led to like the Blue Lives Matter movement? Or what led, like any number, like what led to the whole BLM riots at all? Or what led to, like, we just don't grant the same thing, but...
think it was okay to carry that out in the morning, okay? Like,
right, but it doesn't...
In New York City,
I just want to be really, really careful, because I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I want to be very clear on what you're saying. Nothing justifies.
No, I am not justifying it.
Trump's assassination attempt, yeah, true.
At all. That was murder.
Right.
And even if I have deep criticisms of our healthcare system.
Me too.
Okay, deep criticisms.
Me too.
However, the idea that carrying out vigilante justice is the solution is laughable to me. What happened yesterday did nothing to reform our healthcare system, didn't even inch us closer to it. And at the end of the day, it just led to the murder of one individual who happened to be the CEO of one of the healthcare companies. That's not going to fix or solve anything at all. So, but what I'm trying to get at is there's a reason why there has been this increase in political violence in the country, which I'm also not justifying. But I'm also not surprised by it because people feel like they have nothing to lose, or more importantly, nothing to look forward to, nothing to build upon.
So can I ask you a difficult question?
Yeah, of course.
Like, how can you even sit here and guess at that when you don't even know who the shooter was yet, right? This was recorded a day ago. You don't even know who the guy was. Didn't it come out that the guy was actually like a really affluent dude who like was valedictorian at his school or like, the guy had a ton to lose. So it's not even... Or am I wrong? Was that not true? Did we get the full background on this guy? He's a tech bro from a wealthy family with a master's degree. So it's not even, you're not even right. Your whole prescription and system and way that you're describing this guy, you're not even correct. You're the one factual thing you're talking about, you're just wrong.
To look forward to, nothing to build upon.
So can I ask you a difficult question?
Yeah, of course.
I believe in the American way, not the system we have.
Right.
I believe in the founding ideas. And I believe we can be that. And I believe tomorrow can be brighter. And I believe my children...
Just to be clear, the American way is the system. That's what the American thing was, right? So I don't know what he means when he says, I don't believe in the system. I just believe in the American way. I don't know what the fuck you mean when you say that. Is it a handful of fucking quotes? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And can surpass me. It's going to be hard.
Very hard.
And in this, if we keep going this way, no. But I do have optimism. And I do believe the individual chooses to chart their course. Some people need help, assistance, whatever. We're not born on a level playing field. We're all born equal. We all have an equal chance. But some of us need some help, and et cetera, et cetera. What I hear, from the left is, you can't do it because that group of people are in your way. You are black, whatever color, you're a woman, you're gay, they hate you, they'll stop you. That leads you to a place of hopelessness.
I agree that there's a certain level of defeatist mentality on the left that I don't think is necessarily helpful, right? We have to think a little more strategically about what type of, systemic obstacles are standing in our way of help.
Okay, 8 more minutes. They're speaking with as much substance as the report you wrote yesterday. Yeah, we have 8 more minutes for some criticism of the Republicans or Donald Trump. Just one.
Helping people become what they want to become in life, right? Get to where they want to get to in life. Look, the Federal Reserve put out data in 2021, fourth quarter of 2021, showing that the top 1% of this country owned almost 31% of the wealth.
I know.
Whereas the bottom 50% owned like 2.3% of the wealth. Like, it was insane, right? Just insane. So I give you those stats because there has been a growing problem in the country of more and more of the wealth floating to the top. And, when we talk about waste at the Pentagon, understand that
nothing has to do with the waste at the Pentagon. That's not even a real thing. You're so good. It's a joke. It's okay.
of the biggest redistributive.
Like, I wonder what these people do in their free time. Like, at least for me, like, I stream sometimes. Sometimes I stream. But I think you're going to account for a lot of my free time. If I'm not streaming, I'm doing podcasts, or I'm traveling to a podcast. But like, what do these people do with all their free time? Right? What does she do? One show a day or every few days? Like, if you're not reading or researching or doing anything, like, what is she? Where's? I'm just kidding. It's all memes.
The top, and when we talk about waste at the Pentagon. Understand that one of the biggest redistributive policies that we have in this country that takes money from the bottom to the top is...
It's not, she's not going to say the military industrial complex, is she?
The money that goes to the defense contractors.
Yes.
This is one of the biggest, really?
Tiny group of people who have a lot of sway over our political system because of money in politics.
Yep.
And so our money gets redistributed from the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder,
Yes.
the tax-paying, hardworking Americans,
Yes.
to this tiny group of executives.
But I would say also, I mean, I'm not on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
Also for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Mean,
middle class. I mean, it's getting harder and harder for people to hold on to middle class status.
Yeah.
And I understand the frustration and anger in the country. I mean, I feel it time to time when you see what's going on. And so...
How much you want to bet that if we were to add up the net worth of every single defense contractor, that it would be like 1/50th of Elon Musk's net worth? That's a super guess. There's going to be a guy who's worth like 10 billion. Top 3. Okay, we'll do top. I'm just curious. Top 5 defense contractors. One of these guys is going to be a mega billionaire. I'm going to be fucked. Hold on. Okay, my AI answer says, okay, Lockheed Martin CEO, James D. Okay, James D. What is that? Takelet? Net worth. Okay, my AI, that can't be right. Oh, that's just salary. Okay. Okay, we have $83 million according to Guru Focus. Okay, it's a bullshit site. Okay. Raytheon. Okay. RTX. Okay, remember that number, okay? 83 million. RTX CEO. This guy. Christopher T. Callio. Net worth. No shot. Really? 10 million, $11 million? Oh, okay. Northrop Grumman, CEO. Oof, and it's a woman. Kathy Warden, net worth. Okay. 161 million. General Dynamics, CEO. Phoebe Novakovic, or Kovic, I don't know. $223 million. Okay, a little bit more. This says 450. This is 703. We'll split the difference and we'll say 400. We'll go with the Forbes. We'll go 450. And then Boeing. That's a big company. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg. $29 million. So where are we at for all of this? Was it even $1 billion? Did we make it? Did we make it to $1 billion? Oh, these are the top 5. So where is all the money going, or who has all this money that these guys collectively don't even have as much worth as Vivek. But this is where the income inequality is coming from, is to the Pentagon, to military contracts.
This tiny group of executives.
But I would say also, I mean, I'm not on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
Also for me.
Yeah, exactly. Middle class. I mean, it's getting harder and harder for people to hold on to middle class status.
Yeah, the middle class is losing because of defense contractor CEOs.
And I understand the frustration and anger in the country.
What is the Walmart CEO worth? Walmart CEO, Doug McMillan. Oh, he's a newer CEO. Fuck, he's not gonna be worth that much. I don't know. This guy's worth almost $400 million. Do you think Walmart's stealing all of our shit? To be fair, it wouldn't be just CEO, but revenue of the companies, no? What, companies don't have expenses now? Wait, what is Glenn Beck's net worth? Good question, actually. $90 million, according to Forbes, in 2014. Oh, so he's probably worth over, what, 200 million now? So Glenn Beck is worth more than most of the CEOs of the defense contractors? Like, what is this? Categories ranked by market capitalization. Defense contractors are ranked 50th, below EV charging. I wonder how much overlap there is between those, though. Like, this is defense contractors is 1.165 trillion, and then tech is at 35.637 trillion. Is like some of the defense stuff incorporated in this tech thing? Or like the software or tech hardware thing, or energy? Click and see the companies listed. Roca. Oh my God, Huberman. Oh. Raytheon, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, Next Vision, Safran, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman. This is the total market capitalization. So not even revenues and not even profits, but just the total market capitalizations of all these companies. The market capitalization is $1.124 trillion for all of these. Apple is larger than our entire defense contractor market. The market capitalization of the company, at least. NVIDIA is larger than our entire defense contractor market. Microsoft is larger than our, on their own, than our entire defense contractor market. Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tesla, owned by, I don't actually think Elon has over 50%, right? In Tesla, right? No, he would be worth over $600 billion. Is that 13%? Tesla as a company has a larger total valuation that exceeds the valuation of all of our defense contractors combined. Okay.
Country.
But I would say also, I mean, I'm not on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
Also for me.
Yeah, exactly. Middle class. I mean, it's getting harder and harder for people to hold on to middle class status.
Also for me, what? Hold on.
Money in politics. Is the money that goes to the defense contractors.
Yes.
A tiny, tiny group of people who have a lot of sway over our political system because of money in politics.
Yep.
And so our money gets redistributed from the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder,
Yes.
the tax-paying, hardworking Americans,
Yes.
to this tiny group of executives.
But I would say also, I mean, I'm not on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
Also for me.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Middle class. I mean, it's getting harder and harder for people to hold on to middle class status.
Wait, also for me, what? Is he acting like he's being robbed by these? Wait, what?
Almost 31% of the wealth.
I know.
Whereas the bottom 50% owned like 2.3% of the wealth. Like, it was insane, right? Just insane. So I give you those stats because there has been a growing problem in the country of more and more of the wealth floating to the top. And, you know, when we talk about waste at the Pentagon, understand that one of the biggest redistributive policies that we have in this country that takes money from the bottom to the top is the money that goes to the defense contractors.
Yes.
Tiny, tiny group of people who have a lot of sway over our political system because of money in politics.
Yep.
And so our money gets redistributed from the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder,
Yes.
the tax-paying, hardworking Americans,
Yes.
to this tiny group of executives.
But I would say also, I mean, I'm not on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
Also for me.
Yeah, exactly. Middle class. I mean, it's getting harder
I don't know if he's saying the money's being taken from him or funneled to him. I'm not sure what point he's making here, but
and harder for people to hold on to middle class status.
Yeah.
And I understand the frustration and anger in the country. I mean, I feel it time to time when you see what's going on. And so you think about the federal minimum wage, it's $7.25. I did the calculation earlier today because I was curious, like, what's the exact amount of money? I mean, you're barely making like $13,000 a year with that, right? So
I hate to say this,
Yeah.
but I'm such a states' rights guy.
Yeah. Well,
why
this
should
is
it be
what I think.
$7 in New York City? That's like a dime.
Well, this is the thing. I actually think the model that you see in Scandinavian countries makes a lot more sense. They don't have federal minimum wages. You know what they have? They have unionized workers who get to negotiate working conditions and their pay with collective bargaining, which is much.
But this is like strategic, right? So he's about to just move past that point. This is what I mean when I say this is like a performance, right? You let them say some of the points, and this is what they did with me. Fuck me. I should have never played this stupid fucking game. Although even I wasn't this much of a fucking pushover. You say a thing that they probably disagree with, but is he going to fight on that? Because I doubt Glenn Beck is a big fan of fucking like big union power, but let's see.
Who get to negotiate working conditions and their pay with collective bargaining, which is makes way more sense. So for me, Donald Trump choosing a pro-labor secretary was a big deal. Because voting in favor of the PRO Act, which does away with the intentional obstacles that prevent unionized labor from even forming, is important to me. And so I would rather have the workers have a say over what they're...
Who is the pro-labor union, pro-workers guy that... Also, we're arguing that she's saying the CEOs are the ones getting all the money. Lockheed Martin made $45 billion from the government in 2023. That's what she's talking about. What were their expenses? If they had a $45 billion contract from the government, how much of that was profit? How much was that expensed?
They're getting paid and what they're working
So
conditions
let me push back on it, because I actually I know history.
Push back.
I actually think unions are important.
Yes.
I think business is important. When one side gets the thumb on the scale, it's bad.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And FDR was very dead set against unionized federal workers.
Just as a quick thing, okay, because this union talking point, Anna's I'm not going to say it. I don't know who's smarter here or who's playing what fucking game. I can't tell, okay? But when you talk about unions, okay, unions in the United States, one of the reasons why they have a big issue, and it's funny because Republicans have won the messaging war on this, okay, they're called right to work laws. When people say things like, oh, they don't need a minimum wage in Norway, they just have strong unions. No! It's not that they just have strong unions. It's that the governments in a lot of these countries, I believe in Norway included, has made it so that the labor unions are allowed to say, no one can have this job unless they're part of our union. In the United States, doesn't allow this, which is why we have things called right to work laws, meaning you have the right to work without being part of the union. So when Anna is sitting here smiling saying, I like unions, and then Glenn Beck's like, oh, true, I like unions. If you were to say, oh, so we're talking about unions as a substitution for things like minimum wage, and so you want to have unions that have the same power that they do like in places like Norway, where they are actually allowed to negotiate across their entire sector and say, you can't work unless you're part of the union. Would you support that? Glenn Beck would say, fuck no. Any conversation that isn't including that is not a real conversation comparing the strength of the unions in one place to the other, though. It's not like... It's just a bullshit conversation. I'm not saying she's right. I'm saying that looking at the CEO pay means nothing. Why? Well, then they shouldn't have said that. They said the executives of these companies. That was the example that they used. The CEO is the chief, the highest executive. Because she's looking at the numbers these companies take in. No, she's not. She's not looking at any numbers. She doesn't know any of the revenues or the gross profits, or I'm sorry, the profits, the gross revenues of any of these companies. They haven't cited that at all.
You cannot negotiate against yourself, okay? And knew that would cause all kinds of problems.
Wait, what?
And, FDR was very dead set against unionized federal workers. You cannot negotiate against yourself, okay?
Unionized federal workers are not negotiating against themselves. What are you talking about? A union is there to represent employees. Employees, and a union represents and then fights against the employer. I don't know if you're just quoting for FDR. There's some other thing.
Okay, and knew that would cause all kinds of problems. He was a big labor guy.
He was, yeah.
Not in the federal government, okay? I am all for, and especially now, I'm not a universal basic income guy, but I've been saying for 10 years, we have to talk about this because there's about 10 people that all of the money is going to flow to, and you're going to be a serf and a slave for the rest of your life.
Definitely, yeah.
Because it's all going to change. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do want a gig economy. I want an economy that if I'm a mom and I only want to work these hours, I can check in when I want, limiting people's options is not good. Balancing and making sure you're not getting ripped off on either side is better.
Absolutely.
So how do you achieve that when labor unions can give so much money to politicians?
We got to get money out of politics. And I mean that. I'm not just talking about corporate interests. I'm also...
So his only contribution to the union point that Anna just brought up is to shit on unions. He shit on federal unions, and then he shit on unions when it comes to lobbying. So he just, okay, but she's okay with that.
Also talking about the power that unions have, both on a local level and on a federal level with the campaign donations that they engage in, right? Like,
but how do you do that? You have the teachers union.
Right.
Teachers union keeping kids out of school.
Right.
Because it was a union. There was no science. We now know this. How do you do that?
You have to pass. I mean, look, Cenk Uygur, through an organization that he founded called Wolfpack, has been fighting for a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics. And it wouldn't just impact corporations. It would impact any entity that engages in these current legalized bribes. And I think that's the right course of action. Now, it's difficult because you need lawmakers on a local level, like states, to agree to a constitutional convention. And that's been an incredibly difficult thing to accomplish.
Or amendment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and, there are a ton of Democrats who don't like the idea because they're worried that it's going to be hijacked by, Republicans and they're going to get their way. But I think that really this is the only way that we're going to fix our broken system, because otherwise all of these politicians, they're not working on behalf of the American people. They're working on behalf of the individuals who have bribed them. It's that simple. And we've seen how it's been playing out. If we do away with money in politics and we pass laws banning members of Congress from trading individual stocks, which in some cases, it's obvious they're doing it with insider information they're getting from their closed-door briefings.
No. Nancy Pelosi is just a genius.
Yeah, she just outperforms the S&P 500 consistently.
Yeah, crazy. Well,
does she even? Is there even proof of that? Does her is it just through stock trading, or does her husband do private equity as well? What? I'd have to go look. Every time I've looked at anything related to congressional stock trading, everything they say is always a complete total fucking lie about it. Do you think that teachers' unions are bad? The only time somebody says a union is good or bad is because they don't understand what a union is for. A union is not here to better society. A union is not here to increase all of our happiness. A union is not here to make to make things more fair or whatever. Unions exist to represent their employees. Remember, the goal of an employee is to work as little as possible and to get paid as much as possible. So unions are antagonistic towards employers whose goal is to pay as little as possible and get as much work as possible. That's all a union is for. That's it. So whether you like or don't like a union is whatever. Unions should probably exist because employers tend to have way more bargaining power than an individual employee. So employees that collectively bargain in the form of a union tend to have a bit better time negotiating against employers. That's why unions are generally considered a good thing to exist. But they don't necessarily, a union isn't here to save you from pollution or from immorality, which some people, or a lot of people, seem to think is the point. But
I am thrilled that you are here.
Thank you.
And I know there's probably a zillion things we disagree on, but you are a gracious.
Thank God we don't have to talk about any of them.
And very smart woman. And
Thank you.
I'm proud to have you on the show. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet.